Let's talk about archaeological wars and the historical precedent of the actual modern day distraction of war, especially in the Middle East and Central Asia, and the hunt for archaeological remnants of a potential cosmic war that was fought in our solar system in antiquity and maybe deep antiquity, and how a lot of those weapons that were used during that cosmic war were buried in the Mesopotamian region and maybe Central Asia, and how the wars that were fought in that part of the world in the 21st century and also the later part of the 20th century, the first Iraq War, how those wars could be perceived as being a cover for the archaeological wars that took place in those parts of the world to recover artifacts by certain factions of what could be perceived. If we break this down, this is going to be quite an interesting video in regards to how I present this. We break it down as members of the family, of an extended family, and their minions, their men and women minions, are looking for the historical artifacts, the artifacts that were buried in Mesopotamia, buried in Central Asia. But factions, brothers, sisters, cousins, are all looking for the artifacts that their ancestors, or even if we go back further than their ancestors, their progenitors potentially in regards to their bloodlines, created these weapons and buried them in deep antiquity in Mesopotamia, which is now Iraq, Syria, potentially, maybe even Israel, Central Asia, maybe Afghanistan, and maybe even the Ukraine. In our modern day 21st century, 2022, 2023 war, right? Maybe even the Ukraine. So if I go back in time to a deep antiquity and I follow the work of Dr. Joseph P. Farrell in regards to the cosmic war, we are potentially looking at a cosmic war that was fought, and the historical precedent is already there for us to look at through Dr. Farrell's work, through the work of Zecharia Sitchin, through the work of David Icke, and many, many more researchers I can go on and on and on about. But there's so many researchers that have come out with this information due to their research that there was a cosmic war that was fought in our galaxy by various factions of potentially a family, and various researchers, people that channel information like Barbara Marciniak, who channels the Pleiadians, a group of Pleiadian beings from the future. They say that the Anunnaki, who fought this cosmic war in our solar system, and this is also picked up upon by the work of Zecharia Sitchin, the Anunnaki who fought this cosmic war in our galaxy are a family. And this is the same as the First World War, as Dr. Farrell points out, Dr. Joseph P. Farrell points out. The First World War was a war of basically the royal houses of Europe, which were all cousins. It was a family feud. Now, if you take that back into deep antiquity, and you also piggyback upon the information brought forward by Barbara Marciniak and the channeling of the Pleiadians, there is a family of non-men or woman, human. I don't like using the word human because it denotes monster and not men or woman. Non-men or woman, a reptilian race, according to Marciniak's work and David Icke's work, a reptilian race, and you could say it's the Alpha Draconis, it's just a reptilian race, or factions within a reptilian race, the royal family. supposedly the royal ruling family of Alalu, Anu, there's Enki, Enlil, Nahagsag, Marduk. You could go on and on and on and on and on in regards to the names of these particular beings who all supposedly have their time in regards to the empire of the Anunnaki or the Draconis reptilians, if you want to go down that rabbit hole, or if they were just giants. If you follow the work of Dr. Farrell's work, maybe these beings were from the planet between Mars and Jupiter, and they were gigantic due to the nature of this planet being the size of Saturn, and due to this particular planet being so big, these beings living upon this planet were also giants that came to Earth. As we look at the historical precedent set by the Sumerian myths, the Babylonian myths, which became the Old Testament myths, these beings that came to Earth were giants, and they mated with women, sired children who became the Nephilim, and in that historical context. But these beings, if you look at the Sumerian motifs and often their friezes, you can see that these beings who are seated in these thrones in the Sumerian and Babylonian friezes and seals, these beings are giants. So maybe, according to Dr. Farrell's work, maybe these beings came from this planet between Mars and Jupiter and came to this planet here. And these Anunnaki beings, if you follow Zecharia Sitchin's work, of course, and of the work of Barbara Marciniak, Marciniak's Pleiadians say that these giants, these reptilian beings who were not giants in regards to men and women, but were reptilian in nature, came from Nibiru, a planet called Nibiru. But if you follow the work of other researchers, it's all up for debate, right? But anyway, these beings, whether they be reptilians, or they be giants from the planet between Mars and Jupiter, or they be from somewhere else, Nibiru or somewhere else, these beings came here and they fought all these cousins, these members of the family, brothers and sisters, cousins, all fight wars over who's in control of the planets within their empire. Every 2,000 years there's a change of the guard. Supposedly the members of the family, according to the Pleiadians, get to have their time as the rulers of certain planets within the empire. And our planet has had various rulers throughout the ages, members of the family, the royal family. So they fight over the planet we live on to be able to rule it. And even though one particular member of the family is assigned to rule over this planet, according to the work of Barbara Marciniak's channeling the Pleiadians, even though one member of the family is assigned to rule over this planet, the other members of the family often fight and squabble over who's going to rule it, which brings me back to the cosmic war fought in antiquity and the weapons used during that war. And some of those weapons were as an inventory. If you look at the Enuma Elish, according to Dr. Farrell's work, there are definitely ancient texts that give us an inventory of all the weapons that were used during that cosmic war. And some of those weapons were buried after the defeat of one of the members of the family. The Cosmic Versailles was reached after this war that destroyed Mars. It destroyed the planet between Mars and Jupiter. And it also probably put this planet into a massive cataclysmic event as well. Whether that was a flood or meteorite strikes or electrical plasma events, it's all up for debate, but it's definitely a historical precedent of massive solar system upheaval at some point in prehistory. And that could have been through natural causes, or it could have been through a cosmic war fought by this family. And the weapons that they used to fight this war, the losing factions of the family, were made by the winning factions of the family to bury those weapons somewhere in Mesopotamia, somewhere potentially in Afghanistan, somewhere potentially in even Inner Mongolia or China, somewhere in Tibet potentially, somewhere in the Ukraine even, or even Israel, which was, according to Barbara Marciniak's channeling of the Pleiades, after Mesopotamia was destroyed by the flood, Israel became the base of the Anunnaki, whether they were reptilian or men or women or of gigantic stature is up for debate. But Israel, the land called Israel now, became the base of the Anunnaki. So if you look back at this situation, and this is going to go deep, if you look back at the situation, if we go back into Khazaria, which was where it is now called Ukraine, Georgia, this area of sort of the Asian steppe with Eastern Europe, at some point in the past, the people that lived there, the Khazarian Empire, became Jews or converted to Judaism. But at some point in their prehistory, they moved into Eastern and Western Europe as well. And if we go back in time and we see the Khazarian people who converted to Judaism moving into Eastern Europe and then Western Europe at some point in prehistory, and then eventually those people moving from Western Europe and Eastern Europe into what was back in the early 20th century, Palestine, moving into Palestine and then basically through terrorism creating the state of Israel. The people that moved back there, were they a bloodline group of people that were once in Sumer and Babylon who were progenited from one of the families during this war, right? And they came back to Palestine to take it over, to make it into Israel, to get the weapons that were buried beneath the sands and buried beneath the earth and buried beneath the land itself in that very fertile crescent, to get the weapons that were built, that were hidden down there by the Anunnaki during this war. And the same thing could be said of the people that settled in what was Iraq and Syria and Jordan. The people that settled there knew that through the records that were left behind, that there were this inventory of weaponry, and they were looking for that weaponry. And when the forces that controlled the American Empire discovered that there was an effort by the people from Iraq to find these weapons beneath the sands, that the people that moved through the American Empire therefore had to find an excuse to invade Iraq twice in almost 20 years, or less than 20 years actually, almost twice in 15 years, to get in there to actually extract the artifacts and find out where those weapons were for themselves or for their masters, who could have been one of the members of the family of that lost the battle or won the battle back in antiquity, to get those weapons out of that particular part of the world before someone else got them. Other members of the family who have assigned themselves to, say, the Russians potentially, or the Iraqis, or another faction of men and women in another country, so to speak, who are looking for those weapons themselves. So the force that controls the American Empire went into Iraq and extracted those weapons from the desert. Did the same thing in Egypt, the same thing under the cover of a war in Afghanistan as well, and looked for the weapons that were potentially in caves hidden up there, knowing that those weapons were hidden up there by discovering through ancient texts where those weapons were hidden in Iraq, went in there and got them out, and then buggered off and left Iraq. And you have to wonder, what other countries, other factions of the family members within this ruling progenitor or ancient family, whether they be men or women, gigantic or reptilian in nature, or a bit of both, or hybrids, or who knows what, if those members of those families have assigned themselves to different people from different parts of the world, China, Germany, France, the list could go on and on and on. If they've assigned themselves with different people from different parts of the world, are all those warring factions of the family once again about to go to war with each other, have a proxy war by using their men and women from various countries to fight their wars for them, a war of conquest, a war that's going to be fought so that even though a particular member of the family is assigned to watch over and to rule over this planet within the empire, other factions of the family are going to fight against that faction who's assigned to rule this planet for the next 2,000 years or however long it is. And they are going to fight again with each other through a proxy war from men and women from this particular planet to do their fight for them using these ancient weapons that they have dug up and now are able to use. And are those weapons being covertly used by the factions that have become assigned to the various members of the family, of this royal family, whether they be non-human or human, men or women, in the sense that they could be gigantic, from this particular planet between Mars and Jupiter, who have come here and who came here in ancient history and fought this war, this solar system war, this war within our solar system over the spoils of the planetary empire that was our solar system, which is part of the Anunnaki, part of the reptilian, part of the Alpha Draconis, part of these beings potentially from this planet between Mars and Jupiter. Boy, oh boy, this is getting convoluted and crazy, but it comes down to this simple fact. As Dr. Farrell says, the Cosmic Versailles, because this was a war that happened in prehistory, and the evidence is all there to look at it, and it really is, because what he says correlates with what Dr. Farrell says, correlates with Barbara Marciniak's Pleiadians' message in regards to their historical precedent of the fact that the family, the royal family, are fighting over the empire and the spoils of the empire. Even though it's been assigned to certain members of the family, it's their turn to rule over this part of the empire. The other members of the family want to rule over it too, and they all fight over it, and we're stuck in the middle of it as they fight over it. And in this case, they're having a proxy war using men and women from various parts of the world to fight over the spoils, or to fight over the ability to rule this planet and have control over it at their behest. And is it happening all over again? Boy, oh boy, this is one convoluted video to make, but I think you get the gist of it. It's basically a Cosmic Versailles treaty, which was, as Dr. Farrell says, was made potentially thousands of years ago between members of the family, like the First World War. There was the Treaty of Versailles, where the cousins of the family came together and said, yeah, we're going to call a treaty, we're going to call a truce, we're done fighting, we're going to divide the land up in Europe to how it's going to look in regards to moving forward. Now, is that Cosmic Versailles coming to an end? And is there going to be a proxy war on our planet between various countries at the behest of the royal family of the Alpha Draconis, the Anunnaki, or these giant beings from this planet that was now destroyed, between Mars and Jupiter? And is it going to happen? Is it going to play itself out? Since the archaeological wars that were fought in Iraq, which were basically wars of mass destruction, the war in Iraq, the war in Afghanistan, in Israel, where the Khazarian Jews moved into Israel, Ashkenazim moved into Israel to get the weapons buried beneath the land that was once Palestine. To get those weapons, are we going to see these factions all fighting over to have the control of this planet again in our lifetime? Crazy, wild, mad. But if you follow the information, you look at it and you read it and you research it, it really makes a lot of sense that the archaeological wars to get these artifacts, to find out where they are, this is total Raiders of the Lost Ark shit, to find out where they are and to utilize them for the benefactors, for the benefaction of the ruling non-human beings who fight their proxy war on our planet on their behest. It feels like to me that we could be in a situation where it could be happening all over again very soon. Thanks for watching. I truly appreciate it. Mā te ua. I'll see you again soon.